here today. So welcome. I hope you've all enjoyed your lunch and are attentive to our panel. I'm looking forward to discussing our topic, which is ostensibly how esports stakeholders can create sustainable profit and expand the market. I know that's something very near and dear to a lot of Federation representatives and delegates here in attendance. So I'm looking forward to discussing this here today. So to start things out as just sort of a blanket point, I want to begin by discussing the importance of promoting esports to various stakeholders. So this involves the promotion of esports, very similar to Allan's talk, and why it is important to promote esports to different stakeholders. And I want to start, as I did before, on the far side of me to Harada-san, and maybe talk about why the promotion of esports to stakeholders is so important.
そうですね、今我々にとっては e スポーツというキーワード自体はバズワードとして来てますけど、もともと今 e スポーツという言葉が出てきたから重要になったっていうことではなくて、もともと我々にとっては、もう格闘ゲームだとおそらく e スポーツとして一番最初に歴史が古いと思うんですけど、もう25年、下手したらもう古いところは、ストリートファイターだと30年近くできないと20年以上前から、もうプロモーションとして、もそうですし、コミュニティベースでもそうですし、メーカー側、パブリッシャー側でコミュニティ側、両方の、側からこういうトーナメントっていうのをやってたので、我々にとっては実は、昔からやってきた、プロモーションというサイドにおいては昔からやってきたことなので、変わらず今も重要という言い方ができると思います。また e スポーツだけの今のトレンドの側面だともっと違うことが言えると思います。
So he's asked me to translate for him today, so I'll step in and help you guys out with the discussion. So he's just saying that before esports became this kind of trendy buzzword, fighting games have had a long history of competition, not only from as a promotional standpoint from a publisher, but also because the community themselves got behind it and they organize these kind of tournaments themselves. So obviously it's been important for quite some time. Maybe fighting games is one of the earlier instances. If you go originally back to even Street Fighter, that's probably 30 years or so ago, or Tekken 22 years or so. So we're talking about a long time that this actual aspect of it occurred before it had a name, esports, that it does today. It was important then, and it's probably even more important to publishers and communities today.
All right, so continuing down the line to Alexey, I know your experience with esports has been probably a little bit different than everyone else's. So maybe talk about what your experience has been like and your background promoting not only gaming specifically, the ones that you've worked on, but your involvement in esports as it involves various stakeholders and using esports as promotion there.
Okay, so yeah, first of all, I've been working with the board of teams and creating the Wargaming League, and we had pretty global league with a huge amount of viewers, and the point always was that we had tournament organizers, we had the local PR or tournament agencies, and that's pretty it. Everything that we had to do properly, we were doing by ourselves or with those two types of partners, and it was limitation of data, it was no Twitch and the beer, and it was good thing. So my biggest point is that we should see and follow the journey of the player, competitive player, and see the gaps where the business can be established and can work on, what the operations and different stakeholders can be part of it. So the point is that the publishers and game developers, they've got the as I said some time ago, that they've got the product, the football field, they've got the audience and the channels how to speak with the audience, and also they've got the monetization possibilities. some of the companies like Valve, they are providing the possibilities for external organizers and organizations to move forward. But currently the sphere is pretty limited from my perspective in terms of the new reaches and new possibilities. We should proceed, we should all work together to find the new ways of cooperation, and from my perspective this is something that this is long run. We shouldn't try to find easy money and fast money. We should think long term and go step by step.
Just
For the benefit of Harada-san, this is being live translated.
so if you'd like to listen in on that.
He's very particular. Very excited.
Okay. Thank you very much. So to move on with the topic of sustainable profitability, sustainability, those are things very near and dear to probably most people here. So to move forward in maybe directly responding to what esports stakeholders need to do to sustain profitability, or even just getting to profitability. I'm sure the rest of our panel can speak more directly to that.
Sure. If you look at existing profit model or the revenue model for the esports, is coming primarily from the media and the sponsorship. So the esports events that happen, whether it's a championship or the league, that happen in the smaller venue, and more specifically designed for creating a platform for the media. That's what's happening today. But I think there is an opportunity for the future for the revenue model for the esports from the event itself. Currently, lots of esports events is size of 200 to 500, not more than 1,000. Even though the championship games are being held in 60,000 seat arena or the stadium, but that happens only a few times a year. That's not really the revenue model anymore. Your league, the league events, and really with every week or every month event should be centric, and that is another opportunity. So is it really coming from the venue, or is it really coming from the contents? It has to be coming from the both. So the esports has a great content already, but it doesn't have really good platform or the venue because it is esports arena that provide enough fan experience that gives you a better profit model right from the event. Not well, still you have to spend a lot of money and efforts to create a really nice media platform and also bring a sponsorship. But the sponsor is not just from the media, but also in live event as well. So I think the future opportunity also is in the live event itself, and the venue should support to create the model as well.
All right, moving forward, then maybe you can talk a little bit, maybe similar to that, but just kind of what the profit structure needs to look like for esports to grow and be sustainable.
Okay, I think I'm just going to narrow it down. A lot of you guys probably know me, see me from Taiwan, representing Thailand with the federation there. But today here I'm more on the commercial side, as I have my own sports marketing and commercial rights agency. So I think this is the million-dollar questions to a lot of the NS here. How do I find the money to sustain or to generate revenues? All these guys are non-profit, so they want to hear about maybe what key factors, what IPs they can create for their country, for their federations, to generate the revenue, to bring the sponsors or other partners to sustain their projects and have a good ecosystem within their country. For example, the obvious ones, like we've discussed here today, this morning about sponsorship, that's the most obvious one. But sponsorship money is not that big in terms of the corporate sponsors, because they want to test, they want to see, especially with the national team, it's not like doing world championships of Dota 2 or Invitational, that's big money, right? in terms of sustainability, after you've sponsorship, there's broadcasting, there's media. So maybe federations can come up with their own league and do TV productions like this morning with Brandon, with the Taiwanese Federation, with TESOL. I mean, that's the right model. It's under SATESA, which is an association. Of course, you're going to need help from the commercial private sector, from agencies, from or TV stations as well. Maybe they'll help you produce it and do a rev share instead of just sponsorship, giving you money. So then you are both stakeholders. You both co-own the IPs. Then that leads to maybe some other profit things like selling merchandising or even tickets, things like that.
Great avenues to look for revenue to come from. But I have a specific question for Allan. You know, like you were saying, you maybe a year ago, or even if you go back before AirAsia, not a lot of companies have internal esports inside of them. This is still a very, very new thing. Why do you think that is, and how is it helping AirAsia specifically for your experience?
Well, good question, Reed. For one, I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn asking about how to get involved in esports, especially non-endemic brands. And I realized that those decision makers who hold the sponsorship dollars, branding or marketing, they are average age of 40, 50 years old. And they do not understand esports because they're not a gamer. So what I tell them is, if you have a gamer in your company, go talk to them. They know what is esports. And that helps them bridge the gap there because they trust their own people, right? Your own colleague. So that's what I'm trying to do, to get gamers to connect within their own companies and even form an esports club. So to all the federations out there, go back to your country, tell to your non-endemic brands to maybe start an esports club. Because number one, it's low-hanging fruit. Number two, it's low risk. And that's how they can build up internal awareness. And once that is done, then they were understanding more about esports and willing to spend back into the esports space.
But it relies on that understanding and developing that.
Yes.
Okay, just something to maybe clarify a little bit more what the models that exist for profit within esports are. Because I don't think that this is something that is widely either agreed upon or understood or even very well developed. I wanted to ask Harada-san about his experience with Tekken esports and whether or not he thinks that the profit model for esports is where it should be, or if it should be based off of either traditional sports or new models. What is that like?
そうですね、今現在やっぱりプロモーションの影響出てたので、ちょっと鉄拳の場合はやっぱり日本国内と、法律の形状と、あと海外とで全然やってるモデル、収益モデルが違うんですけど、今の場合は多くの場合、その大会そのものがまだやっぱりプロモーションの影響出ていない。正直言って e スポーツという名前にはなってるんですけど、結局は、我々パブリッシャーの出資はもちろん大会を運営するためにしているし、で、大会自体ももともとアメリカとかヨーロッパの場合だとコミュニティが立ち上げたのが多いので、それを我々も支援するし、例えばスポンサーの企業もたくさん入ってきてますけど、それも同じく出資してその運営自体をなんとか回るようにするっていうモデル、これから出してないんですね。で、最終的には我々、やっぱりゲームを作る側が極端な話、これ根本的な問題ですけど、一方通成り立たせるのにゲームのいわゆるインダストリーもしくはパブリッシャーが潰れちゃったり、もしくはそのゲームタイトルが儲からなくなっちゃったら、そもそもその競技が続かなくなる、下手したらジャンルが一つ死んでしまう可能性もあるので、最終的にはやっぱりパブリッシャーデベロッパーにちゃんとダイレクトにお金が入ってくる必要はある程度あると思ってます。でそれが別に e スポーツの入場料とかっていうわけじゃないんですけど、例えばストリーミングで見てる人が、プレイヤーに今なんかこうストリーミングで投げ銭をしたりするじゃないですか。でああいうものはメーカーに一切もちろん入ってこないんで、ゲームが波及効果で売れることはありますけど、どちらかというと本当はその DLC をプレゼントしてあげる、直接的な商品を、パブリッシャーから買ったり、もしくはパブリッシャーが提供するものをユーザーにあげる時に動く経済がちゃんとインダストリーとかパブリッシャーにお金が入ってくる形になるっていうのが 我々としては一つのゴールかなと思ってます。それが全てだとは言いませんけど。
So currently, I would have to say that as far as second esports goes, it still hasn't really exited the realm of promotion. This is because, although we could say that what we're doing as far as tournaments in esports is slightly different in Japan and then outside of Japan. But even in both cases, it's still strictly promotion. And the fact that the publisher is mainly organizing these kind of events and tournaments. The community as well, they have their own events that they started without us, but we kind of invest in those, I guess you could say. And so a lot of the money is still coming from the publisher, although you still have other outside investors that are attracted as sponsors. But even no matter how much money we get, it's still maybe enough to offset the cost of the tournament, but not enough to really count as profit from esports. So it's still, to us, a promotional tool. Another thing that we currently see is that you see a lot of streamers or other people who are able to kind of profit off of esports, such as when they're streaming a game and players can give them bits, etc. But none of this money actually goes to the publisher. So say that the game that we're creating to kind of be a pillar of esports, as a game alone ceases to be profitable, maybe we don't make that game anymore. So there's issues of maybe sustainability on that front if publishers aren't involved in that economy that's currently how it stands with the viewers, the streamers, and everyone surrounding the publishers. So I think we really have to fix that so that there is a little bit of a revenue stream going back into the publishers who create that IP that's centered around to talk about sustainability.
Will be a few comments from my side. First of all, one of the models is definitely the promotion and the trying to affect the acquisition and the retention of the players, and then, as a matter of fact, to increase the lifetime value of the players. That's one of the goals that existed within different publishers, and I'm not sure if some of them actually made it right. Probably made it definitely with the acquisition. We should take a look into the data and see how the spikes were, what were the spikes of the audience after the big tournaments and events. The second business model is somehow connected to Valve and selling the let's say roadmap, because the primary focus of the selling items from the beginning was a little bit different, trying to create the ecosystem, but in current time it's more or less connected to the big events and selling the loot boxes or whatever, like skins, connected deeply to the team brands and also to the event brand. And that's the third one is to work on the creating the proper media product, which already colleagues mentioned. And currently we see the evolution of all these fast business models with franchise and franchising, taking all the stakeholders like team organizations, broadcasters and medias with the publishers, taking them together, and plus the investors, and giving them the opportunity to work together and establish the proper market and create the value for the players as well. And that's actually, from my perspective, this is the key point, is that what is the amount of audience that we can reach, how this audience will be engaged to our product, and if we will go to the clear understanding of how it can help the federations and non-profit organizations, is to define how they can access the audience cheaper or free, and cheaper than the publishers. If they will have the possibility to engage with the schools, with the universities, that can be the answer. If they will have the possibility to have some tournaments and activities with like mensual structures or some other big companies. That also will be the answer. I'm sure that like we can find like 10 different types of things that they can do in the future. But the point is that if you have the audience, then you will have the proposal to the publishers and to the sponsors and to the other companies.
If I may, I
Actually, got some questions.
I don't know what. Go for it, sort of the comments. Well, my background is from nutrition sports. So I'm not the publisher, I'm not really, I mean, I do play for fun, but not really that application. But when we talk about the sustainability of esports, we keep talking about the profit model, we talk about how to make money out of it, and what is economic sustainability. But if I think or you compare to the traditional sports, they are making a lot of money, by having the sporting events and streaming or the media, but they also do a lot of things for the society. So once esports become more and more popular and having a really larger number of viewership, it's not just event, it becomes a phenomenon. So the esports is also a phenomenon. So once it becomes a phenomenon, then you got to think about the responsibility as well. So in order for the esports really sustain for the future, I'm not saying we have to follow the traditional sports model, but we also think about the sustainability in terms of the public benefit. How the esports can give the public benefit, like you said, education. How the esports can change the social issues. I think that the touch or the thought about those kind of social issues will become a really strong weapon of esports become much more sustainable. So that's something that we probably have to discuss, maybe not for today, but for the future.
I'll continue on that. So from that, on that note about social initiatives is key in the sense that first of all you have to educate, and that means what is esports and what is e-games. E-games is competitive gaming, that is more social. Kids, they start from gamers. Then they want to go upgrade themselves to esports, professional, then maybe they can represent your country, and that's the next level, the pride, like what we were discussing this morning. The education side, so like in Thailand, one of our sponsors are state-owned enterprises like telecom called CAT, and they regulate the IT and telecommunications mobile in Thailand. And they don't give us like, here you go, 100 million, 1 billion. They say, okay, what are your projects? What are your initiatives? Both CSR, social, seminars in schools, seminars to the public, open public, like educating parents. What is esports? So because I think the term esports is massively used, and everything is just thrown in there, So we got to clarify that for one. Then we got to find a way to make it more credible, like maybe including some grades. You got to pass these certain grades. You got to have this many hours of playtime. So then you are making it more credible, so that when sponsors see that, they want to be associated with something that is, credible, reputable, so that it's sustainable, long term. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I hope I'm not really making it too serious.
It's okay. I just wanted to kind of ask Allan, because it is such a unique situation to have a company develop esports within itself. You showed a lot of the initiatives that AirAsia is working on, from acquiring shares in teams to investing money in building places to play esports within the company and outside the company. Obviously, that takes quite a bit of money, and as you invest into esports, is this something that you're looking for profitability from? Is this just for exposure? What is your mindset when it comes to investing all of this money into esports?
Good question. You see, for a big company like AirAsia, we spend millions in advertising, in billboards, on the newspapers, physical newspapers, and even on linear TV. But guess what? Only all the older generation is consuming that content, but the younger generation, everyone knows here, they're not consuming content that way. They're not buying a physical newspaper, they're using ad blockers, they're not watching your linear TV, they're either on Netflix or esports, live streaming. And for AirAsia, we realized that that's a potential miss there if we don't get into it. So we want to communicate and engage with this audience, and one of the ways is through esports, and that's how we entered the market. Number one is for brand awareness, to have AirAsia as a top of mind in the esports space for airlines when they want to buy their ticket next time. Oh yeah, AirAsia, they supported esports, my favorite game, my passion, we'll fly with AirAsia. That's number one. Of course, the long term is also monetizing from an airline perspective. So for AirAsia, our business is to fly people from point A to point B. So we are hoping that next time these esports enthusiasts, even supporting the athletes, they will fly using AirAsia. And that's one of the end games. And also giving back to the industry. That's why we are working together with the government of Malaysia. Even they announced a $2.5 million budget 2 weeks ago. And AirAsia also is investing into the esports hub, taking over a shopping mall. And even the one thing different about Malaysia government is because our sports minister say, hey, we're going to invest. Anyone want to come in? And after that, Razer boss Min Yang also tweeted on Twitter, okay, I'll invest also. $2.5 million. And then you got more investors coming in. And not just about profit, but also getting investment into the space. And that's where we see our value in giving back to the space in that sense. And also just sharing a bit about, I know most of y'all are association and federation here, but sharing from my personal opinion, how people are getting involved in esports. Like we own a team and we talk to other teams. There are a lot of live streaming companies now, and from China apps or even Facebook Gaming. They hired about 60 streamers in Malaysia and Singapore to be streamers, and they actually get good money. Some of them 4 figures or even 5 figures US dollars. So there's a lot of money coming into the space in different ways.
So that's primarily through exposure and brand awareness, and those are the real sort of payoffs. So those don't necessarily have a dollar figure associated with them, but it's about putting your brand out there and hoping for a return off.
First mover market advantage, they call it.
Okay, that's very key. We have about 10 minutes left for our panel, so once again, if you have questions for any of our panelists, please make sure to write those down for our question and answer session immediately following this. And I do want to sort of enter as our last topic the profit structure gap between the esports and between the game industry. So when it comes to making a game, obviously the profit model for that product is much different than developing an esport for that game. Esports specifically, I think something that you all work primarily in, outside of being a publisher, has a very different profit model. So what are some of the more effective profit models that you all are seeing when it comes to either the promotion of esports or establishing sustainability for stakeholders in esports? So just asking for some more information on productive profit models that you're seeing emerge.
So I
probably can sort of add to my first the
comment about the event, the esports event. So the esports event, the Oras, for example, they start having from 2020, they start having a home and away system, and the lower in China also they started having the home and away league, sort of things. So the revenue being generated from the event, we can say 3 different events, 3 different the revenue structures. Number one is the gate revenue, flight tickets. And number 2 is F&B and merchandise. And number 3 is sponsorship and advertisement. The media right is kind of separate. Right now, the sponsor revenue is coming, and F&B is very, very small, and the ticket revenue is even smaller. But again, going back to the traditional sports, their revenue structure may be the similar, but their proportion and the balance of the revenue structure is totally different. The key is that how the esports event, the event itself, can follow or even the catching up the model that the traditional sports has. There is an opportunity for sure, again, as I said earlier. If the venue provides enough fan experience, the fan experience is usually the key. It has a potential to draw the 5,000, 10,000 people to the esports events much more often than right now. Not just the championship, the league itself. Once they establish some franchise league, and doesn't have to always be run by publisher, even though publisher has a great control over it. But event organizer, event owner, or the venue operator, the venue owner, they have an opportunity to grow this event, the business itself, and then make that as, I shouldn't say separate, but sort of another added value to what's happening right now in the esports era. So that is something that should be developed in the future, and I hear that when lots of the stakeholders are looking for a different type of venue, and then right now we see lots of fan experience in esports venue or esports events. It's very similar. It's like a show. It's kind of different, the version of the concert. But is esports, what's the authentic fan experience in esports? That should be different from the traditional sports, or that should be different from the different types of entertainment. So it is really our task and responsibility to research and find the authentic esports experience from the fans' perspective, and how we can provide, we as a content provider, how we as the event organizer provide those kinds of fan experience for the esports. And then not only generating more revenue, but also that has, again, the bigger social impact. So making the esports much more geared towards the live events. And that's another way to bring this esport, the revenue structure and profit model into a different level.
I would just hypothetically do a scenario case here whereby Rossetti does an event stadium in Thailand, whereby we maybe work with Alexey here with Wargaming and with Tekken to do some World Championship League with federations, other federations, whether it be Southeast Asia or Europe or something. And then we get AirAsia to sponsor with esports tourism, and then we generate hospitality packages, tickets, come to Thailand, we go, I don't know, elephant riding or Muay Thai or Thai massage, Thai food. Yeah, see? So something like that is to create this hall for all the stakeholders here. Everybody, it's not just one organizer, everybody benefits, whether it's from a federation, a venue provider, IP owner, we develop this together, a sponsor, and the agency as the activator. Activation is also key, I think, in esports as a good promotional tool as well, and that leads to other things like contents and so on.
And to add to this, good start and hypothetical point, and even it would be great to make a stadium in Belarus, and we'll have the European Games in 2019, next year, and esports will be part of the festival, which is good. But to have more cool things in this idea is that creating the additional like skins or heroes within the game, and also by all the means of like by agencies, by using the federations all together, starting the proper promotion of these brands, so the more people will enjoy the games, but also they will know the people, so will have the possibility to create the new franchises within these events and leagues. So it will also give and from the IP holders, they should be definitely like a rev share model to
Localize it.
yeah, and of course like the localization and the proper market feed, but also the some like revenue share and the possibility to go further and have new experiments and have the possibility to invest in R&D activities and to make world better.
Sorry, just to add on, I'm sure most of you have noticed the recent trend of cross-promotion and cross-collaboration. You see like Fortnite, NFL, even down here 500 meters, you got a Fortnite with a famous actor, and even for other games as well. So you see a lot of cross-collaboration. Even Blizzard has a special design t-shirt with Uniqlo, and you see a lot of hip-hop and artists coming into the scene. A lot of music industry is cross-promoting with esports. So even AR, 2 weeks ago, League of Legends with the KDA and all that. So a lot of things happening in the space. So there's a lot of potential for esports to merge with other industries. So back in your own countries, you can think of ways to merge not only just music or arts and fashion, and who knows, even technology, AR in the future. Yeah. So a lot of, you can see the trend happening now. People want to merge with esports. Yeah.
Next year we have Tony Fernandez hologram.
Say hi to us all.
One step at a time. All right, I think we have a couple more minutes before we head into our question and answer panel. So I just want to go ahead and take the opportunity to ask for any final comments before we move on. Okay. I think we are ready to move on to question and answers. So if you want to raise your hand, we'll get a microphone off to you right up here in the front. Before we get to that, I just want to make a small announcement that in about 5 minutes on the 22nd floor, there will be an academic seminar and a research presentation on esports risk management. So if esports risk management is something you're interested in, then take about 5 minutes to head up to the 22nd floor where there will be an academic seminar on that topic. So let's see, I think we had a couple of hands raised up here in the front. All right, you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, I'm Fred from Rome Esports Macau. I actually got a question regarding features or potentially expansion for AirAsia, Mr. Allan. Would you ever be considering to be the most innovative airline and provide in-flight esports? If you do, as a customer of AirAsia, our flights will be much shorter, and it will create a lot of excitement for all the Asian flights or wherever you do. And this will probably bring a lot of customers to you.
Yeah, that's what our boss asked us to do. So we're exploring it actually, and also in-flight content, to have IFE in-flight entertainment, in the way we can watch esports content. So we're exploring that. Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a curiosity question.
And they can play each other, 180 people on the plane, passengers playing each other,
Yeah, but the real
don't fight
esports
on the plane, okay? Yeah, you got any air marshals?
All right, thank you for your question. Let's see if we have any other questions out here in the audience. All right, right next.
There we go.
For the longest time, we have organized our league this week, and it has always handled us one question: how do we make money? Right? Because it's becoming more and more difficult to make it sustainable, and we discussed this a little bit before. And as I understand it, and you touched on this as well, there are like 4 big revenue channels for esports, which is ticketing and advertising and sponsoring and broadcasting rights. And Benjamin mentioned at some point, well, maybe NFs can look to make a national league as a way to make money to sustain operations. And from my own experience, I can tell that it's it's not that easy, right? To make a league, but it doesn't generate money by itself. It actually costs a lot of money to make a league, to make an actual good product. And we have made a very good quality product. I mean, it's not because I do it myself, but I think it's a very well-made league in Costa Rica. It's broadcasted every week, and it's cast and it's multi-channel and stuff like that. It's very well done. Everything done in-house by the National Federation League, and it's still not generating money at all. So this is actually a kind of a cry for help. It's a question on how we do it in that context, where we created a reputable, well-made IP that people like, but there's still no money coming. So how do you make national league make money?
Well, I think it's also, I have to look at your whole ecosystem and what platforms, and if it's on national TV or is it just streaming, for example. Have you appointed a local agency in your region? Do you have media partners, broadcasters who can also help you set up your advertising platform to work with the agencies as well? So all in all, I think you need to sit down with a few key partners in those areas and like customize it. I mean, there's no right answer or model to this. Each country is different. Each country has its own consumer behavior models. So it's something to be explored. Happy to have a conversation with you on this afterwards.
Sure, I'd love to. Sorry, just to add on to Ben, like I travel a lot to the US and Europe. Like in US, their vocabulary is League of Legends, Overwatch, Fortnite. But in Southeast Asia, it's different, you know. You got Mobile Legends, you got Arena of Valor. League of Legends is big in certain countries, so which is the biggest game in Costa Rica, you know, as a sponsor.
League of Legends.
Yeah, League of Legends, you know, because the sponsor want to look at the eyeballs right now, you know. That's a different way of consuming content. So.
That's another thing, because we have golden brands that are interested, but they aren't interested in branding marketing. They say, well, we are top brand in our market share, in the market section, so we don't need more brand awareness. We need to sell things. How can you help us sell things?
Yes, in Costa Rica, or in the South American market, is national pride something big there?
Yeah,
right. So in Southeast Asia, we have the Southeast Asian in football. It's called the Suzuki Cup, which, you know, whoever wins is very competitive. Like Laos or Malaysia or Indonesia or Cambodia, if they beat one of those teams, they become a national hero in their country, even though it's small compared to the rest of the world. But for them, it's the top, it's the best. And sponsors or brands who want to enter those markets, they generate like 70,000 sold out crowds. Same thing here. We are in discussions in our region for a SEA Games esports tournament, and it's you know, every 2 years or something. So it's a big thing. So then like Toyota or Honda maybe want to come into that space. Maybe you can replicate that.
I think another interesting perspective, the stakeholders that I mostly work with is not the publishers or the game developer. I work with mostly the arena developer, arena organizer, arena operator, or the arena owners. Lots of times they keep talking about the arena with the esports, not just esports arena itself. You know, multi-purpose arena with esports. Almost every time for the last probably 6 months to a year, almost every arena developer that trying to work with us kept telling us that, oh, we want to have esports in our arena. So esports, their revenue model is not always coming from the drug revenue, not making money directly from the esports, but the esports will enhance the overall operation of the arena and also looking for draw a lot more people and making the entire ecosystem of the arena. So this is more like an arena ecosystem, you know, over the just esports ecosystem. So arena ecosystem, esports is very, very important, especially these days. As most of know that the traditional sports, their the age of the spectators are getting older and older, and the younger generation don't watch the traditional sports anymore. The esports has that sort of the driver to draw more younger people to their venue, and then how they can take advantage of having the younger generation coming to their venue, whether 5,000 or 10,000, and then make that as the huge advantage of developing entire area and the local as well. So this is bigger than simply monetizing from the esports, but even the bigger picture.
Thank you. Just to add on to Jung, even in Malaysia, I got invited to a real estate conference. They are even looking at esports, and this is in 2019. So there's a wave happening, and different industries are starting to pick up because they see that esports can bring crowd, and even the real estate market is looking to it, the property developers. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for your question. I think we have time for maybe one or two more. Let me see if I can find any. All right, way back there in the back. Or
Black.
there we go.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting panel, and I think that this discussion helps everybody to think how they can package together ideas and products to grow together. My question specifically is for Masaki-san regarding Tekken. I did martial arts my entire life, first karate, then judo, then other sports. And I have to say it was the first time I saw Tekken during the final, Japan and Saudi Arabia at the World Championship. That was amazing. Amazing final and amazing game. I wait for you to finish translating. You are the most amazing translator, I have to be honest.
Well, like Minho, I get stuck with this a lot, but it's not my job. I'm actually a game designer.
Fantastic. So my question is, there are 15 combat sport federations of traditional sport, recognized and unrecognized. From Muay Thai to Karate to Wushu to Judo, Jiu-Jitsu to all of the combat sports. And I think that maybe it would be interesting to maybe give some type of skins to Muay Thai fighters for a Muay Thai character, or to karate world champions for a karate character. That could achieve two purposes. One would be to popularize more of the heroes in those traditional sports, and the second to popularize more of those traditional athletes that come and play the game. Is that something you have considered in the past, to put real characters into your game, or a skin that can be purchased for money with a revenue split to those federations, sports and athletes?
そうです。おっしゃる通り、確かに、格闘ゲームと、リアルの、フィジカルな格闘技って言われるスポーツと一つ構造として似てるのは、例えば、MMA だとか、柔道でもいいですけど、実際に格闘技を本当にこの中でもやってる人っていうのはほとんどいないと思います。ボクシングとかでもちょっとエクササイズやるぐらいはやってると思いますけど、本当に競技としてやってる人はほとんど少ない。だけど見る人はとても多い。みんなマニパッキャオの試合とか見ますよね、テレビで。それにちょっと格闘ゲームに出て、本気で格闘ゲームをプロとして戦う人は、一握りしかいない。だけど、ゲーム好きとしてこのストリーミングで見るっていう人はとても多い。この構図自体はとても似てるんですけど、実際のそのゲームっていうのはやっぱただ見るだけじゃなくて、このインタラクションとしてのプレーの面白さっていうところでみんなやっぱそこにお金を払うってなっちゃってるので、こうちょっとリアルのファイターの人のスキンを売るっていうのは多少確かに興味はクロスする部分はあると思うんですけど、そもそもいわゆるゲームへの興味っていう部分と、本当の格闘技への興味っていう部分っていうのはでも実は構造としては似てるんですけど、このいわゆる内面にあるその一番自分が価値をどこに払うかっていう部分が実は大きく異なっているので、そんなにシンプルに、それでお金が回るっていうふうには僕らは考えていないですね。それよりももうちょっと、ゲーム自体は本当の格闘技と違って飽きたりしますからね。飽きたり面白くなくなっていったりする。成熟してコミュニティが成熟しすぎるとレベルが高くなりすぎて、新規参入でやりにくくなるっていう、あるので、そのサイクルをもっと新しくするために次の作品をどう新しくリニューアルして面白くするかっていうテーマの方が僕らにとっては重要になってきちゃうので、ちょっとね、本当に全部クロスするかっていうのは難しいのかなと思ってる。
You bring up quite an interesting point that we've not also thought of because the correlations between actual martial arts and also games like Tekken are similar in many aspects. For example, with real martial arts, maybe in the crowd we don't have too many people who actually seriously do martial arts themselves, but you have quite a huge audience that enjoy just watching it as a sport. And the same goes for fighting games, that maybe there's only a few people who really go to tournaments and try to win Eagle or something like that. But many people, much more audience would enjoy watching them as a sport. But when you look at the fine details, a game, what people are actually paying for is not the viewing experience at the moment, at least to the publishers. It's more about actually interacting with the game and actually playing it, and then being compelled to spend money on some aspect of the game. And that kind of makes it somewhat different to that of actual martial arts and viewership in that regard. So it's not such a clear crossover that would generate money in a similar manner. So it's something that we have to think about, because for games it's also different than martial arts, as in you get people who start off at the same time. Certain numbers of like maybe one or two of your friends might be really good at the game after a year or so, and then the others around you kind of drop off because they can't beat that particular friend anymore. So that's another thing that makes it quite different from the real martial arts, is that turnover you see in the game after it's kind of lived out its lifespan. So different from martial arts, we have to update our game by releasing new content or new installments themselves to rather keep interest from the current players, or to kind of turn over the player base and attract a whole new generation of gamers. So it seems similar on the surface, but quite different when you look at it.
All right, thank you very much. Let me check really quickly and see. I believe that is all the time we have left. I'm sorry, I see a couple of hands back there in the back. I think it is time to head off to our next networking break. So coming up soon, we will have a few snacks prepared in the back. So take a few minutes and we'll try to get back here around 3:40 or thereabouts. So you can be back in your seats by 3:40. Before we head off to our networking break, I just want to give our panelists one more round of applause. Thank you very much.